Well, I think fair to say in advance of Saturday it felt this Six Nations of all Six Nations warranted a dramatic finale, and we got one in Paris. England could have, probably should have beaten France. It came down to the last kick of the entire championship, and in the end Thomas Ramos, nerveless, pristine as ever from the kicking tee, did the necessary. We have a lot to discuss. Happy to say Rory O'Connor's here in the studio. Rory, you're very welcome.
Hey Joe.
And special welcome and thanks, I should say. Ian Madigan had to cry off late last night. He just can't stop celebrating. Late last night had to cry off, but thankfully Mr. Rob Kearney is stepping in to give us authoritative final word on the championship. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Our rugby coverage, as ever, is with thanks to Energia. They sponsor rugby in Ireland at all levels, at grassroots with the AIL. Official energy partner to Leinster, Connacht and the Irish men's and women's teams, and their Rugby for All initiative welcomes everyone of all abilities to participate in the game. To learn more about Energy's exclusive home energy offer for rugby fans, you can visit energia.ie/rugby. So just to round off the formalities, Ireland 43, Scotland 21, Italy 31, Italy 17, that 3-year run for Wales ended, and then France 48, England 46, meaning France finished top, Ireland second, Scotland third, Italy fourth, and England second bottom, Wales wooden spoon. We'll get on to Ireland and probably talk in more detail about Ireland. Adding to the list of English crimes against Ireland, Ollie Chesham. I see the posts, but I like it over here. We have Pollock, 80th minute. Checked again, it was the 80th minute. The pass is on. I'm going to throw it. We have Murley hacking at the ball. Just jump on it, maybe. Just jump on it. And then, to be fair, I'm less aggrieved at Finn Smith for the drop goal alone. But he did miss 3 to Ramos's 8. And so this really could have been for Ireland.
Well, they also coughed up the 2 penalties. The high tackle was at Davison, and then, just for good measure, Maro Itoje does a deliberate knock on just to kind of make sure. Yeah, it was unfortunate. Like, this is the lesson is don't be relying on other people. You know, get your business done, get your bonus point against Italy, get your bonus points along the way. France maxed out every time they could. Even in Murrayfield, they got the 4 tries when they conceded 50. So I think they deserved the title on the basis that they got the simple fact is they went and got the points when the points were on offer, and Ireland didn't, and they left it in someone else's hands. It's cruel that it all came down to one last kick, but I do think France probably just about deserved it, even if they did fall over the line a little bit.
Rob, France conceding 46 and 50 points in their last 2 games, deserved champions?
I think on the balance of the whole tournament, yeah, deserved champions. And particularly, the bonus points they got, the points difference, you could argue, the quality of rugby that they played was far and above the best of any team. Defensively, they were pretty leaky, particularly in those last few games. Going back to how England managed, those last few minutes, I think to be fair to Chesham, it's probably the first time in his career that he's ever had to run 60 metres. And he thought, going on the angle to the corner flag is the best way for him not to get caught. Now, he still had time to look both sides and throw a finger up in the air. He could have got a little bit closer. On Pollock, listen, I think this rubbish and the shush is going to, it has not cost him, but put him front page of all the media for what he's done. He had 2 unbelievable interventions before that. So I think if you remember on the 80 minutes, Chesham took a great restart. Van Portley box kicked it up. Box kick was a little bit too long. Then Jalibert makes an unbelievable line break, gets them up to the 10-metre line, throws it to Dupont, who is ready to go, score under the sticks. Pollock catches him, and he catches him from 20 metres away. And then Pollock goes chasing 3 or 4 breakdowns after that, then gets the steal. So 2 enormous interventions. He would have been the hero of this game. And then throwing the loose pass. And that's just a bit of inexperience. And I think with Pollock, he's always 100 miles an hour. Everything is like such intensity to it. He just needs to sometimes just calm down and settle. Murley needs to jump on that ball. Like it bounces up to him. So it was as easy for him to catch it as it was to fly hack it. And then, Yeah, the headshot, I think that was a fair penalty. I think the comms of it was disappointing, because it was from 2 or 3 phases beforehand. It was obviously a TMO intervention into the referee, but nobody really understood that. So then people go chasing for the ruck. So I think it's something to work on from a communication perspective to keep everyone in the loop.
In advance of the game, you were dead cert. Like, you hated this England team, couldn't see it, no chance. What surprised you most about the game?
The amount of points they scored, the rugby they played, the quality of rugby they played, how they took Borthwick's philosophy from the last 2-3 years and they ripped it up and said, we're going to go and play some rugby. And it was a different English team.
Fascinating to know if Borthwick told them to do that, or they just segued into it themselves.
I know, he would have had to tell him, because they would have been working on that type of game plan all week.
It's a big about turn for him, isn't it?
It's a huge about turn. You sort of have a penny for his thoughts now this morning, thinking, okay, we have a team who can score that amount of points and be lethal with the ball in hand. I think it's probably a good enough performance for Borthwick to stay in the hunt, but there will be serious questions over, see, what's your philosophy? What type of game are you trying to play? And let's stick to it.
Yeah. Louis Bealbury deserves a mention, doesn't he?
He does. Just to jump back to England quickly, though, there was an interesting report from Will Kelleher in the Times kind of rounding out the tournament, but he'd spoken to some of the 03 players who'd met with the team over dinner in the week after the Ireland game. It was a pre-arranged thing. I think they went for a curry together, and the 03 team came away, certainly the people Will spoke to, who he didn't name, obviously they spoke under the anonymously to him, but they were shocked by how quiet the England players were, how they were trying to get the message across that you need to take ownership of this team. It can't be top down. And the sense they had was that the players had never even considered the fact that they could speak back up. And they came away saying, this team is never going to beat Italy next week. They're too reserved, they're too within themselves. So I think it has to have come from above, because that group doesn't seem to be, and I'm not sure if groups take ownership in the way that maybe that 03 team did in a very different era. That was a real grown-up team of, Delalio, Johnson, all those alphas, but I'm sure in the heel of the hunt we'll find out where it came from. But for them to, maybe that's the big step. Maybe they needed to bottom out, have that historic defeat to Italy to begin to move up the curve a little bit. Bealbury is amazing. Like the luxury of being able to just chip the ball over the top at any time, and you've got a fairly good chance. I wonder will Ireland start trying it with Balakoon a little bit. I know he's not quite as quick, but they haven't really given that a little, give that a try sometimes. Just thinking into space and see what he can do, because it just causes panic. And whenever they needed him, he just popped up, and it's such an out for them. In Paris, like watching him live in Paris, it was just incredible. The time he skidded on his knees, Stockdale relaxed for a second, then he's gone from that start. It's I think McCloskey's probably the player of the championship, but Bealbury might pip him, and he couldn't really argue it. He's such a different player. He's so outstanding in his field. It's amazing.
Well, O'Driscoll has the Six Nations try record, 26 tries, took him 65 games. Bealbury's at 18 tries in 14 games, which is frightening. I wanted to ask you, Rob, as fullback there, because one or two of the tries, the first one, I wouldn't say it's pointing fingers. There's a question mark. Should fullback be higher up and try and close that space? But it feels like a
it's
fairly...
shocking. It was really bad.
Oh, it was bad?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
And especially when you're playing against a team like France. And Rory's just said, isn't it great to be able to kick the ball behind and he's going to score? Don't let them kick the ball behind. So they shut that gate and closed the door so early, so many times, that they made the decision so easy for France to kick the ball behind.
When you say shut the gate, as in they're up in a line, so there's a big space behind.
Yeah, they just leave the space right there. So you're almost inviting them to kick the ball.
But if your winger doesn't come up and sits back a touch...
As in your open side winger?
Yeah. Do they just feed the ball to Louis Bealbury's hands and then he just runs at them, and that's no fun either?
No, there's a way to do it that you're constantly defending inside the ball. Right. So you can tell lies a little bit and you can do both. So you're sort of saying, I've got that, but I've also got the kick. Okay. So you're sort of trying to play with the ball player's mind a little bit. What England were doing was they weren't playing with them at all. They were coming up so hard saying, go on, kick it there. And then the blindside winger not working cross nearly hard enough.
And so that puts fullback in a terrible position then?
Yeah, it does, because you're reliant on both wingers as a fullback. So you want your open side winger to keep a bit of width and not get up and in, and you really need your blind side winger to be covering across for you.
Do you think there's a degree with Bealbury, there's just a kind of, maybe not panic, but there's a bit of unease and people are a bit tetchy and I want to get up in his face. I don't want to drop
of course,
back. Like,
because
bad
then
decisions.
as a winger, you know that if you give him too much space,
Yes, he gets a run on you with
it's
the ball.
on you, and then you're done. So everyone's sort of, you're trying to look out for yourself a little bit, but also look out for the team and make sure that there's lots of different things going on. But then, of course, when that's the beauty of having someone like Bealbury on the wing, what it does to the opposition defence, even when he doesn't have the ball.
Yeah, speed is terrifying. And even, by the way, his little deft touch at full pace for one of the tries. That's unbelievable level of skill.
I guess the other challenge for a defensive team is that Dupont and Jalibert are such threats in their own right that you have to, you're probably, you can't focus on all of them at once. So they're probably, like Jalibert, the one where he's about to pass and he just slips it onto the foot. It's like the triple threat he offers is just superb. So like when they are humming and they're at their best, like we saw the weaknesses in them, but they are irrepressible at times. But I guess England showed how vulnerable they can be, and South Africa showed it as well, because
And Scotland.
on Scotland on opening night they didn't look like they had any vulnerabilities, and that's on Ireland. They didn't put them under enough pressure, and they kind of played into their hands that night.
So to kind of round off that point, deserving champions France, yes. When they hum, they play the best attacking rugby in the championship. But you know, with a view to World Cup, what are you saying about France?
I think South Africa, I'd say Rassie slept easily on Saturday night. I think across the board, he's not seeing anyone there who can come and take their title off them. Look, there's a lot of time for Ireland to fix their scrum and to improve their goal kicking percentages. I think Ireland are now back in a good trajectory. France have a good coaching staff and they have an abundance of talent. They have a little bit of a problem at tight head because Winnie Antonio has been forced to retire and there's no real obvious replacement there. But everywhere else, they've got great depth and they've got time. And I think England will get it right for a World Cup. They always do. Like, their record at World Cups is incredible. But South Africa is still well out in front. They have an age profile issue. Like, a lot of their best players are well into their 30s now, but they have a lot of good players coming through. So I think from a World Cup point of view, France will definitely be contenders. They're on the wrong side of the draw. Ireland need to beat Scotland to stay on the right side of the draw, and England are on the right side of the draw as well. South Africa will have to do it the hard way, but yeah, and France will probably do it.
They have frailties, the French. You know, you're not going to be overly nervous about coming up against them. I think the Irish would love to have another crack at them now next week, and I think that's what they'll take enormous lessons from the type of game they played going over there and the team that went over there. There was a team lacking confidence, and you could see their confidence grow throughout the whole campaign. The game plan that they went, it might not have been the game plan that they were told to go out on the pitch with, but they were never going to beat France playing like that.
The kicking.
Yeah, the kicking game. And it's sort of, you could probably, you know, you take it back a couple of months earlier, the team so full of Leinster players and all the other provinces who weren't playing particularly well. Those guys going into camp off the back of some poor performances in November just weren't brimming with confidence. And I think that's where Farrell's magic touch throughout this campaign has been, was just slowly getting them back to a level where they're uber confident and playing rugby and throwing the ball around.
Yeah. Well, that brings us nicely to Scotland then on Saturday. 43-21, 12 wins and counting. 9th Triple Crown since 04, 15th since 1894. Real kind of genuine celebrations at full time. I mean, we were pitch side, so you could feel it. But even in the stands, like every bit as excited sometimes over Six Nations Championships in recent years. And in a sense, that's possibly their best performance of the championship.
Yeah, I think between that and England were the two outstanding performances. It's hard to know. England were absolutely rubbish that day. Now, we were excellent, but it's hard to sort of quantify how good we were. We had 31% territory against England. It's unheard of to win a game with that level of territory. Scotland played an awful lot better than England. They didn't play as well as they did the week before, but I think the Scottish performance on a whole and as a balance was our best performance of the campaign.
Okay.
And our best performance of the last year.
The last year. What did you like in particular?
I thought the breakdown was phenomenal. The quality of the work that the forwards did was superb. Defensively, really strong, but we were going after every single breakdown, slowing every ball down by a couple of seconds for the Scots. And the Scots need to play with quick ball. If they don't have quick ball, they can't really implement their game plan. Took our opportunities very well. Right across the board, the backs played very well. So McCloskey was exceptional, but the pack were phenomenal. Phenomenal.
First 11 minutes with Osborne's try, scrum, line out, lovely set play, crisp, and then Darcy Graham after 20 phases, and then Sheehan scores. I thought this is going to be 65-70, and then it calmed down a lot, owing, I think, to Rob's point about Ireland at the breakdown, started to really slow down Scotland. Ireland went into the 22 in the first 56 minutes, 4 times, the Scottish 22, and scored 4 tries.
Yeah.
Which is clinical in the extreme. I mean, you'd like a few more entries into the 22 was a thought, but 4 tries from 4 entries.
But they were so comfortable without the ball as well. I know, they made Scotland go through those 20 phases. I think one thing that's been so impressive, even going back to the South Africa game in November, their goal line defence has become really, really, they're so hard to break on the line. They don't give away penalties as often as they used to. So they were happy enough to let Scotland have the ball, and England got into the 22 12 times in Twickenham, and they were able. Ireland. It was partly down to England being poor, but the Irish goal line defence was really good, and they've become much more efficient and ruthless. And Farrell, when he spoke to us just before the tournament, did lay out 4 areas he wanted to improve, and one of them was 22 efficiency. And he could say that's when he to be honest, all the things he said, discipline wasn't an issue. Scrum is obviously still a work in progress. But that one in particular, the 22 efficiency, was really impressive. I thought they controlled the game from minute 1. Look, they've got a template there. When Scotland come to play town, they just pull down that game plan, dust it off, and go again. There's no surprises with it. They flood Russell's channel. They weren't aggressive in terms of their line speed at times. They were able to kind of played off them a little bit, but then they go after the ball so hard. Byrne had his best game for Ireland. Certainly since the Lions. Doris, I think, had his best game ever for Ireland. Van der Fleer emptied himself. Tom O'Toole was phenomenal. Across the board in the pack, you're looking at 7, 8, 9s and 10s. It was so impressive. It was nothing new. Crowley, I think, controlled the territory much better than he had done the previous week. I think he took more ownership of it and barely made a mistake throughout the game. Not all of his kicks were perfect, but I thought it was his best performance in a green jersey. Certainly since Marseille, Gibson Park was back on it. I think the 50 cap thing got to him a little bit the week before, and he just didn't quite bring his best. And outside of them, even when they had a completely disjointed backline in the last 15 minutes, they were able to put together an incredible multi-phase try for Tommy O'Brien. So it was almost, I think it was the most complete performance since the last World Cup. They lost their way a little bit between minutes 30 and 50, but then he brings on six subs at once, and it wasn't a stellar bench in terms of caps and big names, but all of them contributed so well. And I think that's what's most pleasing coming out of this, is that they found a new batch of internationals with a whole slew of them to come back in as well.
Yeah. Rob, would you give us a word about the attack then? So like we said, in that first kind of few minutes, there was a crispness to that. We get emails in going, what does Andrew Goodman do? I think, to be fair, his fingerprints are over a few of those set plays. It looked like Doris was going to crash into the line, and he pulls one back and Osborne goes over, and it's like, oh God, yeah, that team were so deadly from these kind of situations, and the line out functioned 100%. So we saw the set plays, and then, as Rudd mentioned, the O'Brien try on 68 minutes where Frawley's very involved as second playmaker, and there's all sorts of lovely things happening. Peter Manny called it the best try Ireland scored in the championship. So it's kind of the first time you really thought, God, this Irish attack looks akin to what we fell in love with a couple of years ago.
They're not planned moves. Doris's one at the start's not planned.
Is it not?
Frawley's one is not planned.
Frawley's one I knew. So the Osborne try on 3 minutes isn't a set play?
No. Now, he has the option to always give it back, but you play that move 10 times again, Doris will carry 5 or 6 of them.
Right.
And that is confidence. That's a confident team who are willing just to throw the pass. Everything's up. They're feeling good. The guys around them are running good lines. That's all it is.
It just looks so seamless. I thought, well, they've rehearsed that 50 times.
Yeah.
And how do you know it's not off the training ground?
Well, off the training ground in terms of, there'll be 3 or 4 different options off that line out.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at a team in Paris where they're not throwing that pass and everything looks stale and static, those options are still there. They're just not taking them.
Okay, so Doris crashes it up.
Doris crashes it up, and then we get held up, or it's a 4-second ruck and we look stagnant and slow.
Yeah.
And that's always the sort of the biggest insight, that the guys are just feeling good.
That is really interesting. And it worked a treat. And then talk to us about the O'Brien one on 68 minutes, where it is far more loose and off the cuff, and they're deep into phases.
And they're just getting good go forward ball, and Bundy makes a good carry just before that. Jack comes around the corner, but Jack squares up really well. He gets upfield, he gets his shoulders upfield, but then sits down the outside 2 Scottish defenders, throws a ball out the back. Frawley again squares up, takes the line on, and then throws the offload. It's just good, proper attacking rugby.
And so would you say those shapes have been in place in other games? That they've been given the template, and the confidence or whatever just hasn't been there, or they haven't been winning collisions, and they haven't been taking the more aggressive options?
Yeah, or they've just been a little bit more lateral in their running. So that shape that we saw for that try, that's all they run Monday to Friday. Those type of things, that's what training is. That's what you do on the training ground. And that's why, after some performances, players might say, oh, we're nearly there, or we're feeling good, or it's just not quite happening for us. But there hasn't been anything of a revelation in terms of how they're attacking. They're just starting to put it together.
I think they've got to grips with the way the game has been played much better. I think there was a lot of complaints post-November from within Ireland about the way the game was moving. And I think in Paris, France looked far better set up on those high balls. Ireland have put together a kind of almost a shape. Like you see Gibson Park appearing underneath as the opposition taps the ball back. Suddenly Gibson Park's in that space. Joe McCarthy was there against Wales, and he goes on that gallop, but he's deliberately there to catch that ball. And then they've worked hard on their transition play. I'd say they're training unbelievably well, and they've told us that they've been training so well. But I'd say when you see them, even in that build up to that O'Brien try, Doris is about to get blindsided by the blindside flanker. Like, he gets the ball behind him and he throws that pass over his shoulder blind to Ty Byrne. It's one of the best tip-ons you'll ever see, and he gets smashed, but he doesn't. If Fagerson was, it doesn't matter. He's got it away, and Scotland are scrambling as a result, and that's the confidence that Rob's talking about, and that's surely built on the training pitch as well. I think Farrell has managed to take a group of players who, like, the period from December, January for the provinces was an absolute grind. The weather was terrible. The matches were all one-score games. Particularly the Leinster lads were basically going from punch out to punch out. You know, crap performances in Bayonne where you get the job done. All of this stuff, and suddenly they've just got a bit of flow back. And I think Leinster and the provinces are getting them back in such better nick than they went into camp. They've got that bit of flow is right. They look like they're playing in flow.
Mojo back.
Yeah, mojo
back. Yeah. But even taking that one example of Doris's pass, he's not throwing that in Paris at 14-0 down. And it shows why, the start of games are so important. If you can get yourself into a game or even get a scoreboard lead of 3-6-0 where you can settle down. The problem with Paris was we found ourselves way behind so early on, and then everyone tightens up, confidence go low, you get nervous about throwing passes, and you just go into your shell a bit. And then when you go into your shell, you start kicking the ball more, and you start kicking the ball on the opposition terms, so then the chase is not as good, and all these little 1% add up to been way off the pace.
You look terrible.
Yeah.
Because to use a phrase we were using at the start of the championship, Farrell and his coaching ticket had a lot of fires to put out. So scrum was a big one. We're not saying that's all solved, but you'd have to say the Tom O'Toole thing has gone reasonably well, and the Scottish scrum was being talked about in advance as very decent, and Ireland held their own. The line out, we had a lot of Paul O'Connell emails in, and invariably he sorted the thing out. 100% return on Saturday, Discipline was a big talking point going into the French game. We did a whole, remember that night? It feels like the depths of winter now. We did a whole thing on Ireland's discipline being terrible. Much better now. Again, 7 penalties on Saturday. Age profile was talked about a lot. We'll get on to the regeneration, which we've kind of seen. And the kicking game, Rory, Ireland are now winning about 43% of their own kicks back. They are tournament leaders in terms of the kicking game and winning their own ball back. So all of these things, do kind of look at Farrell and, I mean, will he just walk into the RFU offices, write a number on a piece of paper and slide it across and just walk out of the room? I mean, what a job he's done here, to be fair to him.
Yeah, and I think he spoke in the post-match to us about how much his coaching staff is growing as well. I think we've seen Johnny come in and have an influence, and this is only his third window as a it's only his second full-time window as a coach, really.
I saw that. He said, great people, great at their jobs. I think we're learning about each other more, and we're getting more cohesive and getting better as well. You can forget that there's been a bit of change there.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's encouraging. And look, the people were right to be emailing about the attack and the line out, and there's still concern there. It's not perfect, it's not fixed, and the scrum is a massive. I think that needs to be a national effort now of John Fogarty getting out to the provinces, a national scrum strategy, because I think the provinces all could do with improvements there as well. There are young good props coming through, but in terms of what Farrell has done, I think after he took his eye off the ball in terms of having a second job last year. Obviously, he wasn't there for the Six Nations. He wasn't there for the summer tour. He had a lot of the players there, but it was Irish Rugby's resources were very much split between two different projects last year, and we knew which one was the most important one. It was the Lions, and they went and they achieved there. But when they came back in with a really limited prep, like there was players playing their first game in that All Blacks game in November. November was always, I think the November window was always going to be tricky for Ireland, the way the schedule works out now. So that was difficult. It didn't work. He seemed stressed and tense when he dealt with the media during November. It didn't seem to be a happy camp. There was word behind the scenes that he was kind of calling players out, that he was kind of there was kind of no more Mr. Nice Guy. The environment wasn't quite as happy as it previously had been. But whatever's changed in this window, he goes and he calls the players out after the game in Paris. That can't have been comfortable for the players, but they've responded and they've built into the tournament. Largely thanks to him. I think the rhythm of the tournament, the week, I thought that would work against Ireland, the week's less rest, but they seem to have really enjoyed the relentless rhythm of games, and they've gotten better and better. And look, I think it's a case of, it sounds like he's going to go to 29, and then there'll be an option to continue to the World Cup, and that's pretty sensible, I think. And I don't think there's going to be much negotiations done. I'm sure they'll have no problem meeting his value. I would have no doubt the RFU will make a play for the next World Cup cycle as well. The sense we have is that he's quite happy here and that he'll be happy to continue.
No problems your end if he does?
No problems at all. He's done an incredible job.
The only argument anyone posits against another 2 to 4 years is that too much time in the saddle with the same voice. Whilst everyone recognises he's an amazing coach, that's the only question mark I ever hear from anybody.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't. Honestly, I don't buy this concept of a stale voice or one manager been around too long. If you're still winning and performing well, and he is a coach who, demands the highest of standards from the players week in, week out, and he's still constantly getting the best of them, I don't see an issue with it.
Jack Crowley. Not a fun week, I'd say, his end. Until Saturday.
I wouldn't say it was too bad a week for him.
You don't think the outside noise gets in?
Well, the outside noise was just about his goal kicking, to be fair, wasn't it?
Bit of game management as well.
Yeah, a bit of game management, but game management is something that is one of the easiest things to fix because you just kick the ball a little bit more in your own half. And I think probably you look at the trend over the few games of the whole tournament, didn't play any rugby against France. And then they played some really good rugby against Italy, but nothing was sticking. Passes on the floor, inaccurate. Great performance against England from playing really good rugby over there. And then I'd say they probably didn't give the Welsh the respect they deserved in terms of how well they defended that night. So they thought, we're at home, we'll fling the ball around. And we were talking about it on Virgin the next day or whatever it was. That notion of you earn the right to go around a team by bashing them up front, getting quick ball, winning the gain line, being physical. And they didn't really do that, and they still tried to play to the edge, and it didn't work. So there was an awful lot more pragmatism in his performance at the weekend, because teams don't want to play rugby in their own half anymore. That was one of the new trends of rugby in the last few years, that the attacking team weren't necessarily getting rewarded for having the ball. So let's get out of our own half as quickly as we can.
So the kicking is the kicking, and he kicked 6 from 7. He's going to feel a lot better about that. One of the points made after Twickenham by plenty of people, Eddie Jones included, was that it was almost in the style of a French number 9. It was a Gibson Park-led performance as opposed to a number 10-led performance. What did you see on Saturday? Who's directing traffic for Ireland between 9 and 10? Crowley's role in how Ireland play?
The 10 will always dictate the traffic and who goes where and where are we going as a team. Now, he can shout at the number 9 and tell him to do it, but it's still his call as the number 10. Jack was very good in Twickenham. All the players were very good, but the guy inside him and outside him were absolutely world class that day, which makes his job an awful lot easier. When you're playing off quick ball, when the pack are doing well, again, your job's easier because you've more time on it. The opposition are on the back foot. They're not getting off as hard. So I think the weekend was his best performance of the campaign.
Okay, why?
By a long shot. Just he looked very comfortable. He made a lot of really good, simple decisions. He was square with his running. He didn't take much out of the ball. So a lot of the time it was just catch and pass, make all the other players around him look good. Territory battle was good. So what he was criticised of the week before, playing too much ball in his own half and not sort of been as pragmatic as he could, we saw more of that this weekend.
Which sounds like a very mature performance.
Yeah, it was a mature performance. But it's a hard position to play. And, again, we spoke about it. It's not been the easiest 18 months for him.
No, the rivalry hasn't brought the best out in each other.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't.
It's been a toxic.
We've not seen remotely the best of these two players in the last year and a half.
And do you see it now, like, to kind of sum it up in blunt terms, Farrell, and it's his prerogative as coach. He's the head coach. He has to do what he sees and he has to trust himself. He can't listen to other people. He definitely said, I think it's Sam. And we had this much talked about higher ceiling for a long time. You may have used that expression yourself on occasion.
I think you did too. I'm sure everyone did.
And somewhere along the line it hasn't worked. And he's had to kind of abandon ship there, and he's plugged in Crowley now. So do you see that as kind of Crowley's going to get a long, good stint in the saddle? Jersey's very much his. How live do you think this number 10 situation is? Like, do you think it's very possible that, for instance, Harry Byrne comes back, lights it up for Leinster, that then he's in the conversation? Because there is an argument all the toing and froing isn't helping.
Yeah, there is, and there's a lot of toing and froing. And I don't hold that against Andy Farrell. And I'm sure and we have seen an awful lot of criticism. Farrell's created this problem and he's chopping and he's changing. As a head coach, you pick the player and you want them both to, and you expect them both to go out and play to their potential every single week. So I think the fact that we haven't seen the best of Sam and Jack over the last year and a half, it's on Sam and Jack. It's not on the coach. So they've got to do their job almost and produce their best rugby. Where does this leave Sam going back to Leinster? I don't know. Does Harry start? He probably does, because he was in the man of possession beforehand. But I think there's no doubt that Jack is in control of the jersey for the foreseeable.
Yeah. How do you see it, Rud?
Yeah, well, there's 15 games, give or take, between now and the World Cup, 12 of which are competitive. There's one against Japan in Australia. There's one against Fiji in November. I would say the game, fitness obviously being the most important selector. Like, there's no guarantee they're all going to be there in the summer. There's no guarantee they'll all be there in November. But I think Jack starts in against Australia away and New Zealand away in the summer. Certainly on current form, I think he makes the team feel better around them. I think that there's no coincidence the team's performances have improved since he's come into the team. I think Sam is not playing with any confidence at the moment. He will come back. I've no doubt that he will bounce back from this down the line. But right now, he needs to rebuild his game a little bit. Needs to rebuild his confidence. So Crowley's the man in possession.
I suppose what I'm getting at with that question, there's no doubt Crowley starts the next game or two. Like, there's no doubt. I suppose what's been interesting for Crowley, if you were to look at it from his perspective, is he hasn't had to do a lot wrong for Sam to get straight back into the team. Whereas Sam, it seems, because Farrell just has a leaning towards him, would get more wiggle room, will get more games. So, I mean, it's not helpful for Crowley if he goes out against Australia and New Zealand, doesn't go well, and he's just out of the team.
Crowley needs to sustain that level of performance now at Munster for the rest of the season, because he has dropped off from time to time. When he lost his place to Prendergast, he'd had a poor start to that season with Munster, and then that came into the autumn series. Like the Munster situation is very. We're going to be watching that closely the next couple of weeks. They've just lost their senior coach, who's leaving at the end of the season. They're not in the Champions Cup. That's damaging to Crowley, who, one of the big things he did last year was kick the winner against La Rochelle and play really well over there. He's playing a lower standard now in a team that's struggling to get into the playoffs. So he needs to sustain what we saw on Saturday, because we know over the last 3 or 4 years he's produced that from time to time. Croke Park, he was exceptional. If he played like he did in Croke Park on a regular basis, there wouldn't be a debate. The problem is there's a gap between his best and his worst, and he does seem to vacillate between the two. Maybe that's just a product of him being 26. At the moment, Sam Prendergast is not challenging him because he's not playing well himself, and he's fighting with Harry Byrne for that jersey in Leinster. And I thought Harry Byrne was in a really good position coming into the Six Nations, only for it never to get off the ground for him. And he obviously got a concussion along the way, which meant that he wasn't available for the last 2 games. Frawley's been really good off the bench, and a big problem for whoever's not picked to start is that Kieran Frawley can play 10, 12 or 15. And I was never convinced last year by Frawley as a 15 or the year before when he played there. I mean, like, we've got an expert in the room. He's looking like more and more comfortable in that jersey. He looks quicker in that position. I know they don't need that many more fullbacks, given they've got Hansen and Keenan to come back in. But if you're going to pick a centre on the wing, on the bench, or go 6-2, what an option to have. So it's going to be hard for Sam to get back on the Ireland bench, especially when Frawley goes and plays 10 for Connacht next year. So there is at least 3 in that battle, if not 4. And another problem Sam has is that both Harry and Kieran Frawley are in his province. Leinster will have watched what Frawley did as a replacement in the last couple of weeks and gone, we'll have a bit of that when we're playing Edinburgh in a couple of weeks. So it's up to him to get into that starting team, and that's not a given either. So I think it's Crowley. Crowley's got the luxury of being Munster's number 1 no matter what, and he's Ireland's number 1 coming out of this tournament, and he just needs to kick on. Whereas Prendergast is now looking over his shoulder in Leinster and has a battle on his hands there. But I think they'll manage him well as well. Like, they've got a duty of care to kind of rebuild them, and they'll do that as well.
Yeah. What about that? Frawley's in a nice position.
Yeah, Frawley's in a nice position. I tell you what I would really love if we went back to that New Zealand game in November.
24.
Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Because that's when everything changed. And you'd love to sit down with Andy Farrell and say, okay, if you had your time back now, what do you do? How does everything play out?
Then would you have stuck by Crowley a little more?
Or would you have gone with Frawley? And would you have given him more of a go at it?
He seemed a bad pass or two against New Zealand, and he got 6 months in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
6 months, 18 months. He didn't really come back.
What do you suspect Farrell might say?
I don't know. Because with the benefit of hindsight, okay, he's given Sam so much time in the saddle. Okay, not really worked out. Jack's been up and down, but is Jack, in his head, is he the best out half of all 4 of them? I'm not so sure.
You're not so sure?
Yeah, I don't. In Andy Farrell's head.
Sorry, in Andy Farrell's head.
Yeah. So, I think Frawley has been a little bit hard done by.
So you do have the sense deep down, Farrell, in the privacy of his thoughts, isn't so sure Crowley's his top guy the way he sees them, whatever about current form.
I think so.
Yeah.
And sorry, that is only a hunch.
I know.
I've
based on team selection.
Team selection. So, in another world or in 4 months' time, another thing that Jack doesn't necessarily have going for him is the quality of the Munster pack and 9 inside them. Now, I'm not saying they're bad, but they're not as good as this Leinster pack in Jamison Gibson Park. So whoever plays 10 for Leinster gets a little bit of an armchair ride for the rest of the season, whereas Jack and Rudd was saying, he hasn't played well for Munster and he need to see how he goes. It's not easy being a number 10 behind a pack that's not getting great ball. So that's another challenge that he's going to have. And if Leinster go on and do really well in Europe and really well in the league, and whatever out half is in situ is lighting it up, and Munster are struggling a little bit, well, then we come back to the summer. And
wouldn't you like to think Andy Farrell knows rugby. He would take that weighting into account, Munster pack v Leinster pack, when I'm judging how the 10s are doing, Yeah,
and listen, Jack's going to have enormous credit in the bank.
Well, we talked about confidence. So if Jack Crowley's part of a struggling Munster team and he feels like he has to do it all himself, and he's carrying the ball into contact 20 times like he did against Cast, and if the goal kicking, because there's a burden of responsibility on his shoulder, and also he's playing this, he's like high involvement in phase play, and then he's trying to kick the ball over the bar, and that seems to be something he's trying to work out. If the goal kicking isn't going well, this is a scenario where he comes into the summer and he's not in the best of form, and Prendergast may have won back that number 10 jersey and be going well for Leinster, and he's confident, and they have to select on that as well, and that's where it becomes a bit of a battle and a debate. What you want is Crowley kicks on, shows the same maturity from Munster, trusts those around him, doesn't try and do it all himself, gets to, uses this URC period to get his goal kicking right, and Prendergast rebuilds himself as well, and they're both going to Australia in incredible form, and you've got really good options. We haven't really seen that so far, but I do think the Munster situation is a challenge for Jack Crowley, because they are scrambling for points. Their season is tanked since the first 5 games of the season. Yeah. There's question marks over McMillan. There's question marks over the squad. It's just in flux, and it's not a stable environment for Crowley to go in and thrive. Whereas Leinster are on the nice side of the draw for Europe. They're nicely positioned after a slow start in the URC. They'll mix and match. As Rob says, he's behind a good pack who are all playing well. Suddenly, Caelan Doris is throwing lovely passes out the back to him. And I'm sure he's watched the last 3 weeks and gone, where was that pack for me in Paris and against Italy? And he's gone, what would I do in that sort of ball? And he'll back himself to come back from this. And that'll be fascinating to watch as well, because at the end of the day, he's 23. And it might not be this World Cup cycle, but he's going to be a player. We've seen him do it against Australia in November. Murrayfield last year, he was outstanding. He's lost his confidence, but he hasn't become a bad player. He obviously needs to fix the defensive side. But
great period for Sam Prendergast.
Well, sorry, just the last one. Will it be a great 2.5 months for Sam Prendergast or Harry Byrne?
Well, sorry, whoever starts for Leinster, I'm just talking about when Sam Prendergast looks back on his career over 10 or 15 years, he is going to look at this last 6 months and say, that made me a man, and that made me a resilient rugby player.
Okay, no doubt. And in the next 2.5 months,
who knows?
Yeah,
who knows?
It feels like Harry Burns. Is he in possession?
Well, they mixed the match. The last 2 games in Europe, it was, I think Sam started away from home and Harry started the home game, or maybe vice versa. I know they're selling the Edinburgh fixture on the Harry Byrne kick against La Rochelle. It's been the most prominently played kick of the Six Nations, as Leinster try and sell tickets for a game they'll probably win by 60 points. I think Sam Prendergast needs to be into Leo Cullen this morning going, I want to play on Friday night. I haven't had a game for a month now. I want to show you what I can do. And I hope that's his attitude. And obviously Leo then needs to select between the two of them over the next couple of weeks. I don't think that debate is settled at all.
No.
That jersey's up for grabs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Harry's the man in possession.
Oh, you think he is?
He is, yeah. I genuinely thought that Harry was going to start in Paris.
Yeah, you were feeding
and
that.
And it was
feeding that one to everyone who'd listened the week of that game.
Because it was close.
Was it?
Yes.
You have that in good authority, I feel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Byrne was right in the mix.
I'd heard that as well. I mean, that's why I'd say Harry Byrne is the most disappointed out of anyone, because he didn't get a minute. And he was very close to being the main man coming into it. And like Farrell kept talking about him. He talked about him the whole way through November when he wasn't even in the squad. He has a role to play somewhere. I'm not sure. Maybe it's Stephen Donald coming in towards the end of the World Cup off a fishing trip. But he has a role to play in this long down the line. But he obviously needs game time and to kick on. And like that should be, you'd hope, drive them on, because it's not as high profile. Like, no one's talking about Harry Byrne versus Sam Prendergast in the same way as they are with Crowley. So it's more a training ground battle and a personal battle, and that should drive the two of them on.
Okay. That's enough time in number 10, as ever. Short break, back with more from Rob and Rory. So a question for you, Rob, then. Say they're all fit. Osborne, Balakoon, O'Brien, Keenan, Mac Hansen, Lowe, Stockdale. Who's your back three?
This is wild. The richest we have there now.
It's
isn't it?
incredible. It's some turnaround. Balakoon, at 28 years old, is the Six Nations rising star. Even he in his interview was a bit like, this feels a bit silly. I don't know if I don't know if I should qualify for this award. I'm in my peak year. What's your back
Are they
three?
all fit?
Well, they're all fit and they're all playing well into July for Australia, New Zealand, Japan. Who's your fullback?
That's the hardest one.
Right.
Yeah. So I think James Lowe on the left wing, just in when he's playing well, what he gives and offers the team is unbelievable. Balakoon is exactly what we've been missing.
Speed.
Just the speed, the athleticism. You just see when he gets the ball, he moves different. It's just, it's beautiful to watch. He's an out-and-out finisher, works hard, brilliant defender, great tackler. There's no weaknesses to his game.
Hansen can come in and do that ball playing thing.
Yeah, but there's a world where Hansen gets looked at 15 now.
All right, okay.
You know, after that Australia game, he was so good. He pops up everywhere. He is that ball player. Then you've got Hugo, who is reliable to the nth degree. And that's what you want in fullbacks. You want your fullback not making mistakes. And if they do, it's 1 every 10 games. And then Jamie Osborne, who just gives a little bit more than in terms of he's big and he's strong and he's got that physical presence. So when he takes the ball back from deep, you know you're winning that ruck and you know that there's not going to be, under any pressure with it. I think if James Lowe start, his kicking game is less important, but Jamie Osborne's kicking game is unbelievable. And he's a nose for a try line, as we've seen this campaign. So I think 15 is where it's most up for grabs.
Got a preference?
I think depends who you're playing. I think you're going up against the Springboks, you probably go Keenan. I think I like Hansen at 15. I think it's a really lovely option. I think he opens up the game for you in the way Froley's been doing off the bench in the last couple of weeks. I think Hansen's an option in left wing as well. He made his debut at left wing, so he could provide a different option to James Lowe in a World Cup. Being able to present different pictures to the opposition is a pretty good thing to have. I could see Osborne moving into the midfield when everyone's fit, being an option for 13 and to take the pressure off Gary Ringrose, or even to just light a fire under Ringrose a little bit, who I think got better as the tournament went on, but I don't think he's offering enough from an attacking point of view still, compared to even Gary Ringrose when he first broke onto the scene, and I think he's become such a defensive linchpin for the team. But I'd like to see him open up his game a little bit more, and maybe just having a proper rival might do that for him. And obviously midfield's like they're never fit. Like Ringrose was on one leg through this whole tournament. It would be nice to be able to give him a break, and Osborne would give you that option. Okay. If everyone's fit and you're picking, I think it's probably it's Balakoon, Keenan, and Lowe, but only not with any great conviction. I think Hansen could fit into either of those 3 jerseys, and you wouldn't lose an awful lot.
Okay.
You only really play a right footer on the left wing unless you have to. And as the games get bigger and more important, it's just such a luxury having a left footer.
They've kind of stopped using the long left-footed clearing kick in the last year. Like a lot of one thing I think they can develop, a lot of their exits are coming off Gibson Park, and he's good at them, but they're not getting a lot of distance. Like they've barely used Osborne. They barely use Crowley for clearing kicks. I don't know what the thinking is behind it, but I think that's somewhere they can go back to that.
The majority of them have been contestables, so you'd never pass back to then contest, because obviously everyone's offside.
But even when they get it off the pitch, it's going through Gibson Park. Certainly the last couple of weeks.
He's good at it.
Yeah,
there was a few at the weekend. He was getting us up to the halfway line.
Yeah,
that's as good as what anyone else is going to do.
Yeah. I just like to see a bit of variation there. I think especially when Lowe comes back in. I think they got spooked after Twickenham 2 years ago when England ran those long and on kicks back at them. I wonder is that something they could reintroduce because it was such a strength. But that option is lovely, and like the 50-22 Osborne kicked in Paris was just an advertisement for what he can do in that department as well. And like the fullback depth is incredible.
Well, it's funny. The nature of the questions I'm asking you are now from a position of strength and options. And it is extraordinary that Balakun's 28, Tom O'Toole's 27, Nick Timoney, who started to have a real impact, is 30, and then McCloskey, obviously 33, vying for player of the tournament. It's a joke. Farrell's used 35 players, more than in any of his 7 previous Six Nations. Like, I don't know what it says about Irish rugby that the guys have come in and done so well, or so old, relatively speaking, but it is incredible. The McCloskey thing is a joke. Like, it's a joke how well he's done.
Well, just going back one point, I think that this is the biggest kudos to Andy Farrell above everything else, is the amount of players he's used, and the quality he now has into his squad.
Yeah, because
international exposure.
Because in November, I was, he did his book and I was doing interviews, and honestly, like the tone of the question I asked was like,
where are the players going to come from?
He said it himself.
Your team's finished there. Sorry, Andy. But it's over.
It takes a lot of sort of faith in these players to throw them in, and the easy thing as a coach is to stick with the tried and tested.
If Richie Murphy wasn't at Ulster, it's interesting to know if Timoney and McCloskey and these guys play as well. Maybe they do. But you feel like the Richie Murphy renaissance there has contributed here.
Yeah, it definitely has.
In a way, a year ago, you couldn't have predicted.
Well, they're a team playing well, and it sort of harbours back to the confidence piece at the start. The Ulster players have not dragged the national team through, but they've been the ones who have been really, really performing. And then,
do you agree that their style of play is more akin to what Farrell wants? I'm hearing that a lot.
Their style of play,
more likely to offload, running into space, less pragmatic.
Yeah, well, I think to be fair, when Leinster are on it, they play that type of game too. They just haven't been doing it as much or as well in the last few months. No, he wants a team who are playing good rugby. He's not a Steve Borthwick type coach. Kick the ball. He wants flowing, good attack rugby.
So to your original point, I derailed you there. Farrell's ability to sniff out who to pick and when, and to put them in. Even at Darren Murray, nobody was saying Murray will be. It was a Dogbo, it was a Chuku. There were other options, and he goes, "No, I'm going to go you."
Yeah, he seems to have a real eye for talent when they've not necessarily proven themselves.
Yeah, that is a gift, and as a national coach, is even more important.
Yeah. Going back to sort of the McCloskey point, he's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable. And I always sort of, because I played with Stu for Ireland a number of times, and then he got left out. I always felt he was hard done by a little bit. And he was up against a prime Robbie and Bundy as well. So if it was the other way around and one of the other players came in after being left out in the dark for so long and produced this rugby, we'd sort of been saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I think he was just very unlucky that at that time he was third cab in the rank behind such good players ahead of him.
I don't remember, and as good as the other two were, for sure. And often one of them was injured. There was room on that bench potentially. I don't remember over the last decade people saying McCloskey should be in. There was often talk of beautiful offloader and physical, and he's doing very well for Ulster and ripping it up in the RC. But I don't remember a big how is McCloskey not involved in this Irish setup ever?
You're probably not talking to enough people from Ulster.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, if McCloskey was from Limerick or Cork,
you think it'd be louder?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but I think also you have to accept, or you have to go back to how good Ireland were during those years and how consistent they've been. Like Chris Farrell played a big part in the Grand Slam in 2018. So McCloskey would have been behind him in the pecking order for a period. He was never Joe's favourite player. Like, we got him during the tournament, and he talked about he didn't feel his face fitted under Joe, and
his offloading face.
I think it was he was seen as being a bit loose, and Joe didn't fancy that, and then there is the consistent excellence of Aki and Henshaw that you can't discount at all. And even when you think about Timoney, he's trying to get into a team that Josh van der Fleer's in, winning World Player of the Year, that won, 18 games coming into a World Cup, won a Grand Slam. That it has been a really hard team. Farrell has made it a very hard team to get into. And he makes special cases of someone like McCarthy, he'll see, both McCarthy brothers, he'll see at Leinster, and he'll just plug them in. But if you're just going well at URC and Champions Cup and you're coming up and training in Ireland, you're relying on Josh getting injured to get into the team. And like Josh has, touch wood, had a great injury record. So Timony's been, like, I remember seeing Timony in the gym in South Africa. He's been in all these camps. Like the two of them have probably shared the car going up the road to Belfast on a Wednesday, knowing they weren't coming back, over and over and over again. I know McCloskey's turned down offers to go to France. I think if he was in the English system, he'd have gone to France and taken the money. It's a testament to the Irish system. It's a testament to probably what the provinces are able to pay their best players as well, to keep them there, to keep them engaged. And they're getting the benefit of it, that they've hung around. Because, you know, Kiwis don't, even All Blacks don't stay around after they turn 30, really. They go to Japan. Whereas Ireland are keeping the players they want to keep in the provinces by and large, and they're remaining available, and they're being made use of at a time where most other countries would look the other way, which again is a testament to Farrell going, I don't care that you're going to be 34 next year. You're the right man for the here and now, and you're playing well, you're training well. And there is an issue with the age profile of the midfield going to the World Cup, and it's only 18 months away. It feels less pressurised now, because you think if they're playing this well now, they'll probably be okay this time next year. It's maybe a problem for the next World Cup cycle. But if they're all playing well, it doesn't matter what age they are, really. You got to just pick the guy pick the best qualified guy who's in the best form, and go with him and see how it goes. Because they had Postlethwaite in for the entire tournament but never looked at him. Yeah. And he obviously just isn't training well or offering as much as the players who are ahead of him. And that's on him now to go back to Ulster and earn a spot. And Osborne will come into that conversation as well. So there will be players coming through, but right now, all of the best options are in their 30s. And we can't write them off just because of what age they'll be in 18 months' time.
Yeah. It was interesting on Saturday. Shane Horgan was sort of saying he thinks maybe one of the reasons we're seeing more offloading as this Six Nations has gone, one of, not the reason, but McCloskey's presence. You just start running lines off him, and there's a contagion effect almost. I don't know if you buy that or how you see that.
No, and that's part of, you know, getting to play with guys more and understand their little intricacies and how they play. But anytime Stuart McCloskey takes the ball into contact now,
there's a queue around him.
There's a queue around him because you know he's going to be looking for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it helps when you're that strong and 6'4" and you've got the big reach.
117 kilos.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, it's very difficult for opposition defence coaches to say to the team, and listen, just shut down the McCloskey offload, will you? Yeah, how?
Well, you can't. You have to go high and tag the ball. And if you do that, well, then he's winning 7 or 8 metres post contact.
Yeah. But even against Wales in particular, and again against Scotland, there is far more getting hands free, throwing the offload than there had been in more recent times.
It's confidence.
You think it's that?
Yeah, there's a huge part of that. And obviously a coach who's sort of encouraging you to do it and not throwing up on a Monday morning review that one time you did throw it and saying, we don't do this. It's a part of their game that they can do. We're never going to be the best offloading team in the world. But it's a part of the game that if we want to win a World Cup, we're going to have to be a pretty decent offloading team.
They won collisions as well, and I think that's partly down to the way Farrell managed the squad in terms of taking Josh van der Fleer out for the Italy game, giving Byrne a break, giving Doris was the only one that didn't get a break over the tournament. Even Dan Sheehan got a weekend off, and like suddenly we saw the real Dan Sheehan back in the jersey on Saturday. They weren't as fatigued maybe, or they had more energy, so they're bouncing into collisions, they're winning collisions, and then as a result of that, you've got to go forward and you can do what you want when you're in that position, and that dominance is so important. And we didn't have that at all in Paris, and it's been kind of hard to come by all season, even at the provinces.
Did you buy the Lions hangover thing as someone who's been on a few?
Yeah, I did. Because I've first-hand experience of it. It happened to me both times. You know, you just come back after a really long season. You've enjoyed such a high with the Lions. Everything, you know, is just on a different level on those tours. Your body's sore. You're carrying a few different niggles. Mentally, you're not fresh. So it's something that I did buy, yeah.
Okay. So let's sum this up then. We're back. No, I'm sure things are not perfect and we can all get ahead of ourselves. But with a view to July, and we'll see what the provinces do, there is a definite sense here. Farrell has got into the team. He's regenerated. The style of play, you know, the kicking is developed. The attack there's confidence, and it's looking very familiar. This, you know, all those other fires to be put out, set piece with the caveat of the scrum a little bit, and discipline, all these kind of things have been sorted out. They've got through a real body of work here. I mean, South Africa, Ireland-France right now, as you said at the very top of the show, Rob, would be an interesting game next week. But there's just so much more optimism than there's been in a year to 18 months, I think.
Amazing what a win over England can do for the national psyche. And it's often an England game that reboots it. It was in 2021. It went on a downward spiral in 2019 when England came over. There's other examples of it. There was the time back in 2010, I think, when Ireland were going pretty poorly and Owen Redden started tapping penalties and Johnny attacking from inside your own half, and then suddenly you denied Emma Slam, I think. There's been so many times where it's been England that's been the catalyst and everything starts to flow after that. The beginning of the whole Farrell revolution was that 2021 game, and definitely now watching them, the way they were able to put together an 80-minute performance against Scotland with that 23 players, a really unfamiliar looking Irish team when you stand back and look at it, with the knowledge that the players we've mentioned, plus Andrew Porter, Ryan Baird, Paddy McCarthy, Jack Boyle, are all to come back into this. A couple of players were in around the squad like Bryn Ward, who'll get action as it goes on. You're suddenly in a really good position. Farrell's got his mojo back. It seems like everyone's back on the same page. They've got another title to go for this year. We don't know what the Nations Championship is going to be like, but you know that Farrell's going to make it the most important thing in the world. I'd say winning at Eden Park is going to be the next mission, being the first team since 1994 to go and do that. If they can go to Australia, New Zealand and get up in that competition, they'll go into November in a really good spot, because France are sending a B team down to the Southern Hemisphere. England have to go to Ellis Park, and they're the teams you're competing against. You need to win 5 of those games, and then you're going to be in a final against probably South Africa a year out from a World Cup. What an exercise to go through. Everything's looking good. So you just got to keep building. You got to get more confidence into your 10. You got to fix the scrummaging issues. You got to add layers to what's there. But what's there is way more encouraging than what we saw at the end of November or in Paris. They've definitely turned a corner and are starting to trend in the right direction. With a long way to go, but it's more positive, definitely.
Okay, final word to you. So far from perfect, but you obviously share that sense. They've got a hold of this and kind of steered it in a different direction.
I think they're back.
There's your headline.
They've weathered a real storm, and they were in a little bit of a rut, and it could have gone either way. And sometimes you see teams get into a rut and not able to claw themselves back out of it.
Were you getting a bit worried?
I was worried.
Yeah, they're not. You okay?
I was. Am I surprised? Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. Not shocked, but I'm surprised at how strong they have finished off this competition. I think of all the teams in the Six Nations now, you'd prefer to be Ireland.
It's funny, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
France have just leaked 100-odd points. One at home. England, you don't know if they're coming or going. Scotland, great rugby, but we can't beat Ireland again. Wales, it was great to see them get their win, but they're still way off the pace.
That's true.
So I think the turning point a little bit was that Italian game, and we were lucky to get away with that game with the win. Menincello's pass that was adjourned forward that wasn't actually forward.
Bounce of a ball under
So
the
if
post.
that game is a draw,
then it's crisis.
well, then you don't go to England maybe with as much confidence, and if England didn't play as badly, so I remember seeing this fixture list come out last summer, and you see, okay, we've New Zealand away, we've South Africa at home, then we've France away, we've England away. We could conceivably lose all of those games and get pumped in a couple of them. Irish rugby could potentially be in a really bad place at the end of the next Six Nations. It's not. And I think that is the biggest confidence booster to them, and that's why I say that they've weathered a storm of a season that could have gone really badly that now looks as if it's gone really well.
Yeah, beautiful. We'll take it. Our rugby coverage is with thanks to Energia. Rory O'Connor, pleasure.
Yes.
Great work, all Six Nations. Thank you. And Rob Kearney, massive thanks for swooping in, helping us out, giving us a final word on a very positive tournament for Ireland. Thanks a mil.
Pleasure.